session tonight. But I really just wanted to say thanks everybody for coming back and hanging out with us. I had a lot of fun last week. And I know Karen and I heard from a lot of y'all that it was nice just to have some time to gather together and just see familiar and some new faces every week. So Karen, with that, do you want to introduce us to our awesome guest, Kelly?
Yes. Well, and part of our awesome guest is she's so awesome that she's offering the 2 prizes to Katie and Sam. Kelly, would you like to announce the prizes? Kelly?
Yes. So the organization that I work with is called Unique. It's all about your own calling from a gospel-centered worldview. So it's a biblical understanding of calling and vocation. We've got a book on it and how you can name your own. It's called Unique the Book. So I'm giving away copies of the book. It's a great summer read to dig into and start to name that unique calling that God has on your life. So Katie and Sam, I think. Yeah. So just text me your home addresses and you'll get a copy of the book mailed straight to you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So, and I met Kelly through, I can't even remember who in Atlanta, kept saying,
Virginia.
Oh yes, it was Virginia. So it was like, you've got to meet Kelly. So she went to UVA and she went to Princeton Seminary and she's amazing. And she is all those things. Kelly is the CEO of Unique, this organization that she'll be telling you about in her work. She's an experienced coach and she's declared her kind of purpose as a person who lives to convert hidden potential into deployed passion. And she graduated, as I said, from UVA and Princeton, and she's been to Disney World over 100 times, because she's from California. I know, that's amazing. And she lives in Atlanta. She knows my mother and father-in-law, Bob and Myra Marsh, and is a member of Presbyterian Church, Peachtree Pres, with her husband and family, and she's a mom of 2 teenage girls. Yes.
Yeah. High school graduation ceremony.
At the church.
That church.
Yeah, I love it. It has theirs there.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yep.
So Kelly is, this amazing life coach, visionary, enthusiast, lover of people, lover of God. So I'm just really thrilled, Kelly, that you could be with us tonight. And this is a shout out to Genevieve, who said she wanted to hear something about vocation, and I thought of you right away. So we give you this time to do with it as you wish, and are just happy that you can come to our cafe tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me, everybody. It's fun to connect with fellow Who's. And I had this real experience of I hadn't been to Grounds for a while. I actually missed my 20th anniversary. I had open heart surgery, so being alive is good and everything, but I missed it. So I had this real experience of going back this fall for the first time with my daughter, who's now looking at UVA in 2 years, and getting to see the new JPA. Went to a game. They played like the hoop from the national championship video, and I found myself crying, and I was like, okay, I need to get back to Grounds more often, because I was such a sap about the whole thing. This is awesome. But it was great. So so I am excited to talk to you guys tonight about jobs and vocation and the Christian understanding of calling. And I want this to be really interactive. So right now in the chat, if you had to give me a sense of what you understand calling to be like, you'd be like, yes, I understand what calling is. I know my calling. I can tell you what it is, to I have no idea, to I'm kind of playing around. It's something I think about, but I'm not really sure. Just give me a sense, where are you when it comes to understanding what calling is on your life and how you would articulate that in your own words. Go crazy. Or you can come off mute and talk. Either way. Nobody's chatting. At least I'm not seeing it. Everybody needs the book. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, here we go. Fair enough. Sometimes it is much easier to think about knowing what you're not called to than kind of what you are called to. So yeah, not sure how you got there. Yeah. You can see other people's callings are not your own. Sometimes that is true. Sometimes we get clues from that. Taking it a day at a time, that's actually a really good way to go, because it does evolve. It is something that is revealed. You feel God in lots of things? Yeah. Good. Not sure how they fit in an overarching story. Good. We're going to talk about that tonight a little bit. General calling. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about tonight is moving from general calling to special calling. So Sam, was it Sam? Oh no, Mary Dryden. Thank you for using that language, because I'm going to pivot off of that right now. So what we believe as followers of Jesus is that we all have a sense of what we're called to do in general, meaning what is it that we all share, regardless of our age, regardless of our situation. We would say, as disciples of Jesus, there's some things we all share. For example, we're all called to worship. We are all called to serve others. We are all called to pray. We are all called to dive into his word and understand his word, right? These are things that we've been trained up to do in the church. But we also believe that in addition to that, God has a special calling on each one of our lives that is completely unique to you. And what's more, we believe it's both knowable and nameable, that you can name it. So we're going to get there together on how you can get that for yourself. So I'm going to share my screen here of course, when my computer died, my presentation did too. Let me just pull it back up real quick. To take you through, the first thing I want to do, so kudos to the person who said, sometimes I find it easier to know what it's not than what it is. So we're going to start there by looking at, and I want you to kind of give me a sense of what you think about these 5 things that keep us, what are the 5 common barriers that keep us from really being able to name the call that God has in our lives. Okay, are we in the money now? Everybody can see this? Excellent. All right. The first one is this. Let's talk about the first barrier to really knowing the special call that God has on your life is this: the me that others want me to be. The me that others want me to be. Has anybody on this cafe night ever thought about pursuing a job, a career, an internship, because that's what mom, dad, a good friend, a coach wants you to do? Anyone? So those voices are extremely powerful in our head and in our lives. Laugh out loud. Yes, yes, yes. Of course we have. What a good Christian woman does is this, or these expectations can really get in there, and they sometimes help name things in us that are things we should listen to. But oftentimes they are indicative of a barrier, which is the expectations that others have on us, which can become an enormous barrier to what we're called to do. So you think about Paul in Ephesians 3, he's naming all of the ways that he got off track, right? So let me talk about the expectations that he says I had on my life. I was circumcised on the 8th day. I'm stock of Israel. I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. And he emphasizes Benjamin in the Greek there. I'm a Pharisee. I had zeal for the Lord. Of course I had to show up persecuting Christians. That's what was expected from me. And so he needed that jarring from Jesus, which we'll get to later, to get him into listening to who God was actually calling him to be. So this is a huge one. You're still seeing the first slide. That's a problem. That's a problem. Why is that happening? How's that?
Sometimes, if you're sharing from a PDF, just if you like, I would keep it out of presentation mode.
Okay.
I found it to be tricky to share PDFs on Zoom somehow.
Now this is a slideshow, but we can just do it like this. Can y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, we'll just do this. This will be fun. this to me, others. Okay, that's barrier number one. Let's go to the second one. The me that's sexiest to see. Anyone ever thought about wanting to imitate somebody else's success? Like, I want to be such a great paddleboarder. I want to look that good paddleboarding that I'm going to, whether or not I'm gifted for it or even enjoy it, I'm going to go do that because it looks so great. Anyone? What does that look like in your life? Yeah, modeling older students who seem to have it all together, that seem to get really great jobs. We can definitely try to imitate that success. Skateboarding, they're trying to, well done. Did you break any bones though? Yeah, okay, as long as you didn't break anything. Interesting enough, in Acts, we see this really incredible story where Simon is watching Peter and John heal people, right? And he comes up and he's like, how do you do that? I want to be able to do that too. And they basically say, well, because they have the Spirit of the Lord upon him. And he goes, no, I'd like to buy it. I want to buy that power to heal people. And they were like, that's not exactly, the disciples are like, that's not exactly how it works. If you want to look it up, it's in Acts chapter 8 for yourself. But we can do that, right? We can see other people who are working out of giftedness that God's given them, but that's not necessarily us, but it looks so good that we can imitate it, and it can be a barrier to truly understanding the person that God has created us uniquely to be. All right, so the next one is this one, which is, this one's powerful. It's the me that someone will pay me to be. Oftentimes, if we're not careful, we can fall into the trap of becoming whatever someone will pay us to be. So we might not have a passion for something. We might not actually necessarily have our greatest, best of ourselves version out there, but because we're getting some goody from it, because we're getting either accolades or money, we can be so captivated by that we'll stay in something that isn't actually allowing the full version of God's createdness in us to flourish. Can success and money be tied together as barriers? Yes, they can. I think they can, especially when success, let me say it this way, when success is defined as more money. Because I think God wants us to be successful. But I think he wants us to be successful living out our calling, and not necessarily just the captivation of accumulating more money. Well, Jesus says that, right? In Luke chapter 12, verse 15, he says, your life is not the definition of the abundance of your possessions. That's not what life is. You will have to explain choosing social work over law for the rest of your life. Probably not to the people that you serve, because the people that you care for and help them move forward with their lives are going to will never forget you. So it's all about the voices that you're listening to, and this is exactly what I'm getting to right now. These barriers. This is the devil's voice. This is the great liar getting into this, that's saying that this other stuff is more important than the person God created you to be. This one is kind of odd right now in a weird way, because we can sometimes get caught up in the me that time makes of me. In other words, we become what we do. Have you ever heard that phrase? Like, whatever you spend your time doing, that's who you're going to become. Now, how many of you, being good wahoos like me, worked really hard and achieved a lot and was on every like student committee and did everything possible and spent time in a frantic way in either high school or university? Anyone? Anybody doing it now on Zoom? Who's exhausted on Zoom? Definitely doing all the activities, definitely. And they're life-giving, right? We have a lot of fun. I mean, it's not that they aren't good, but we can become so preoccupied with just staying busy that we're not necessarily directing energy into places that will allow God to flourish through us. Yeah, so me for sure. Yeah, Karen is a good word. The tyranny of the urgent, like, well, people need me. I have to do this. It's important. Becomes these things that can prevent us from really choosing where we can show up. Yeah, you almost feel guilty when you're not busy. I definitely think that is one of the barriers of allowing ourselves to live into our calling, because productivity, Karen, is such an idol in our culture today. It isn't, I mean, it's idolatrous that our self-worth is defined by how productive we are. But I do believe that, Jesus was probably the most productive and effective person that ever lived. But it's because he was always stepping into what the Father was already doing, and he was very clear about his mission. He did not heal everybody who asked to be healed. He did not respond to everybody who asked to have a conversation with him. He just stayed on mission. Pretty productive guy. He's the best person to learn from. It's amazing. Look at the way he lived life. All right, last one. How many of you guys have seen American Idol? Okay. And you've seen like the first 1 to 2 episodes of the season? Yep, totally. And these people come and they are so convinced that they are America's gift to singing, right? And they show up and they open their mouths, and everyone in America knows that they are nowhere close to like America's gift for singing. Or how many of you, it's cringeworthy, how many of you have ever been in a student group or a working group, and people are ready to bless you with the gift they do not have, right? And you're like, oh, please stop. A lot of times it comes from this barrier of the me I want to be, which we call the projection of ourself, where we think about an image or an idea of ourselves having talents, gifts, capacities for things that we just don't have. But there's a barrier there. We don't have them. So we're always trying to bless people with them. Like, I'm not an American Idol fan, but how many of you guys have ever watched the Worst Cooks in America one? Or anyone? Okay, y'all missing out. The Worst Cooks in America? Oh my gosh, the first couple episodes, these people like make these dishes and they try to get these like famous chefs to eat these food, except it's like, here's the best thing I've ever made. This is gonna get me on the show. And it's like bean and corn casserole, and it's like, y'all need to watch it. It's really funny. It's great. Does it work the opposite way, where you might actually have the talent but don't believe you do? Absolutely. We get into that in our process of naming calling, and that is where, as we live in community, where it's really important for people to call that out in each other. One of the activities we do, Karen, I can send it to you, is we encourage you to pick 3 people in your life that you really respect and really love and that know you well. It could be 3 people on this call. You could do it right now. Pick 3 people. And you say, I want you to love me enough and care about me enough to give me honest answers to these 2 questions. Number 1, what's something that is a gift I have or an ability that I have that I don't see, I don't use, and I don't offer enough? And then I also want you to love me enough to be honest with me and answer the flip side of that question, which is, What's something that I think I'm better at than I really am? Don't let me waste my life. Don't let me embarrass myself by going through the world thinking that I have a gift or a talent that I don't have. So yes, Dom, we think those two questions are incredibly important to ask and answer as you start to hone in on your calling. So those are the 5 barriers to get down to what we would say there's the actual me that God created me to be. So if these are the 5 that are the barriers, right? This is expectation of others, the imitation of success, captivation of money, preoccupation with activity, and projection of self. How in the world then do we sift through and name the me that God has created me to be? Well, we're going to work a couple little tools here to get there. But I want to ground it in scripture first. When we were developing this toolbox for calling, the conversation that Paul has with the church at Philippi is really beautiful. And in this section, he talks about this really quite beautifully, where he says, for you are God's masterpiece. The Greek word actually that he uses is the word poema. Paul says, you are God's poem, a work of art. You are his masterpiece. There is no one like you. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. All of that's wrapped up in that beautiful poem. And you were created in Christ Jesus, right? For good works. There's an intentionality here. God didn't just create you. God made you a masterpiece for something good, which he's prepared beforehand for you to do. And then Paul spends the rest of the letter unpacking what that is, in part, which is to walk with the Lord and to live out your calling. So this is, you are God's masterpiece. You are his poem. You are a work of art. And your calling, that thing that you are called to do, that he's prepared beforehand, is a little bit of what we're going to unpack now together. But to do that, I want to talk about the difference between a job, a vocation, and a calling. What's the difference between a job and a vocation? What's the difference between a job and a vocation? Do you have ideas on that, or how you think about it? A job and a vocation. It sounds fancier. Latin always does, right? Let's go for the fancy. I like it. Or loftier. Did you guys write that at the same time? That's funny. Okay, good. So a task versus a way of life. I like it. A vocation can be a stay-at-home mom. Yep. Called for your care. Yeah, so it's not necessarily something you get paid for. Like, okay, good. Yep. A job is something to do as a means of making money. Okay, good. So we're getting in there together. A job pays the bills. Good. A vocation might not necessarily pay the bills. Fair. Avocation with an A might be something that you do as a love. So let's see if I can. What happens if I do this now? Oh, nothing. Bad things happen. Because this isn't going to work, is it? Oh, it's so frustrating. Okay. Well, you're just going to get the big reveal of the whole construct at the same time. So y'all are smart enough to handle it, so it'll be fine. Usually I kind of reveal this as we go, but here we go. So let's start down here. I'm going to talk about this thing in a 2x2, in which we're looking at value on the x-axis and vitality on the y-axis. What do I mean by these words? Value is this. Value is what you get out of it and what you give to others. So it could be in part about money that you make, financially, the ability to be able to provide for yourself, provide for your family, to be able to give through the church to provide for God's people. That's value. It could also mean impact that you're making. So if you're a social worker, if you're a nonprofit exec, so I've spent my world in ministry and nonprofit work, the value I create are the lives that I touch and the people that I help. So it is money, it's financial, but it's also impact. Vitality is this: how much joy do you get out of it? How much do you like doing it? How fun is it? So when we think about things that have low vitality and low value, we're talking about the JOB. And we all start there. Everybody, what was your first job? Go. What was your first job, your first JOB? A dishwasher. That's what my name means. Kannwischer means dishwasher. Nice. Babysitting. Toy Story for $3.50 an hour in a toy store. Nice. Pet sitting. Taco Bell. I love that. Busboy. A physics tutor. Nice. Camp counselor. These are good. These are really good. Inventory at your high school, like inventory of like school supplies or like books. Is that Genevieve? It's like inventory. Just keep doing school supplies. Okay, camp counselor. Good. So the thing about a job is that you're trading time for money. That's gonna be my definition of a job every time. You trade time, how much you give time in exchange for a wage or money. And let me say this about jobs. Sometimes the most noble and important thing you can do is get a job. There's no shame in the job category. There's a lot of honor in it. And you can create the ability to gain experience, work ethic, expertise, and sometimes just food on the table for your family. So while it is low on value and vitality, I don't mean it to be low in honor or dignity in any way, shape, or form. It's a job though. And sometimes just naming that and just owning that is everything. Right? I mean, just as like, it's a job. I don't need it to be the end all be all of my job. I just need it to provide, to live the space and create the space it's supposed to create. So some of us though move from on this axis from low vitality to high vitality. This was the direction of the millennials in general. So they went from doing activities they don't necessarily time for money to going up here and doing the things that they loved, hoping to make that into something that could generate money down the line. So Karen, this is why people live in your basement. Because while, yes, yeah, exactly. Right? You do that because it's like, well, I want to like try out this photography thing. Actually, I had a really good friend when I lived in Newport Beach, California. My husband and I pastored a church in Newport Beach, California for many years, who wound up starting carving, that's what they call them, surfboards. And it was a hobby because of surfing. And then he wound up turning it into a multi-million-dollar business called Almond Surfboards. So that's the direction that he went from job to hobby over to vocation, was starting with something. He didn't really make any money at first, right? But he was increasing the vitality and the joy that he got out of something. So we can go up to hobbies. Now, friends, this doesn't always work where it's going to turn into vocation. Let me explain. I like to play golf. I'm terrible. Nobody is ever going to pay to watch me play golf. No one's going to ever pay me to play golf. In fact, it's going to be the other way around. I'm going to have to pay money to go play golf. So sometimes we have hobbies in life that are just that. They're just fun hobbies. But sometimes they can be things we can hone and craft into bringing additional value. And that's a good thing. Now, my generation, I'm an older Gen X, and then my parents are the boomers. They went the other direction, right? So they started with jobs that they built into careers. So they started with good work, and they got a promotion, they got some competency, they built some experience and some expertise, and then they went up to career. And they thought, I don't know when or how I decided to become the regional salesperson of pneumatic parts of whatever, but here I am. And they started asking the question, is this why God put me on earth? Is this who I'm called to be and what I'm supposed to do? And so from this career zone, started asking questions, okay, what would it look like to be able to move toward vocation? So there's no one linear path to this. Part of why I show you this is to give you some freedom to breathe. And if you're in a job and it feels like a job, it's because it's a job. And you're not doing anything wrong. And it's part of a journey toward vocation, which in the Latin means calling. So vocation is that space where not only are you experiencing high levels of God's grace and breath through you and favor, which you experience as joy and as peace, but you're also bringing high value, which can look like financial reward. It can also, and investment in others, but it also can look like high impact on lives that you touch, and people that you invest in. So is vocational more intentional than a career? Not necessarily. What we would say is that what we want you to do is to intentionally map your way. So for example, right now, as the economic impact of the COVID disruption hits, there's going to be a lot of people that move from career back to job. They're going to have to, or at least back this direction, or at least down on vitality as they find work that they can. And some of you may be experienced, I don't know where you guys are in the young alumni or, graduating versus young alumni. You're gonna be like, wow, like I had this internship lined up, I had this, great job lined up, and now they're pulling all of that back, saying, hold, and I'm gonna have to go do something in the interim. So what we're saying is that, okay, so if that's true, that's okay. But where do you feel called to take a next step, and how can you map your way forward in that? Is it on the vitality side, or is it on the value side? Meaning, sometimes you need to increase expertise or training in order to be able to then go up on vitality. Yeah, Caroline's saying she had her dream job lined up, and now you don't really know if that's happening or not. Like, that totally stinks. But if you can park it in, okay, so this is where I am right now, map it, then you can be like, okay, Lord, here is where I am, and I want to take us in the next 6 months or 1 year, whatever it is, I'm going to take a step in a direction towards vocation. What does that look like? And it's amazing just having a mindset to be intentional about allowing God to work through you, and that can be incredible in opening doors and in opening just awareness for how and what God wants to do through you. Yeah, so thoughts on this? Like, these 2x2s are kind of helpful. It's just kind of fun to name some of this stuff. So this gets to job and vocation. I'm going to switch to calling next, which I'm going to put a little twist on the calling definition. But you guys can come off mute and talk about it, or.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think, like, on some jobs you look back and you don't know what you were learning and what it was preparing you for. So I would just say, because I'm a little older than y'all, but I worked in a toy store for $3.50 an hour, and when I went in and stood up for myself and got $4 an hour, I was very proud of myself. Skirting my, but I got, and it doesn't always work out this way, but I got to then manage their new store when they opened it. Or you just learn how to show up. You learn how to get out of bed and be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Mary Dryden's talking about privilege, to be able to strive for a vocation as opposed to a job. Do you want to respond to that, Kelly?
A little bit. I hear what you're saying, and I want to affirm that I think that there are many people that live out of their vocation, their calling, their vocation space in a blue collar, what we'd typically call blue collar or wage earner job. And what do I mean by that? So Os Guinness wrote a brilliant book on calling, if you really want to dive deep on it. But one of the things that he said is this, and I think it's really beautiful. He says that your work can either frustrate you, fulfill you, or free you. And I'll type that in. It can either frustrate you, fulfill you, or free you. So what do I mean by that? I would say that I don't think the Lord wants us to live in a space where we're frustrated. So I think if you are doing work in which you personally are frustrated, meaning it doesn't align with your abilities, and I'll get to this in a second, your talents, you don't like it, that I do think that God does want us to at least evaluate where we can either reframe why we're showing up, why we're there, and understand the value we're bringing differently, or move up on value or up on vitality in some direction. But our work can, if it doesn't frustrate us, it can also be in two different spaces. It can fulfill us or it can free us. For some people, our work does genuinely fulfill us, meaning it's in that space of both high vitality and high value in a way that it's the a vocation, where we are genuinely enjoying the work that we do. It is life-giving and we really like it. It is fulfilling in the true sense of the word. But for other people, the work that we do frees us to live our calling. So for example, I did one of these life planning processes in a church with a gentleman who has been working at a manufacturing plant for almost 40 years. And he would not say that same type of job, literally has been on the floor of the plant for almost 40 years, was something that fulfilled him. But he liked it because it freed him to live out his calling, which was cooking. He loved to cook, and he cooked for his neighbors. He cooked at the homeless shelter. He cooked for friends. He cooked for people when they were sick. He cooked, and he loved it. And that's where he experienced this vocation space. High value, impacting lives, touching people, bringing joy, and high vitality. The work that he did every day paid the bills for his family, put food on the table, paid the rent, gave him the ability to then be able to have God work through him as a cook. And he loved to cook. He made evidently really good gumbo. I never got to taste it, but the people that were in the workshop around him said it was epic. So while I would say that we don't all have the same type of work, whether, in opportunities, I do think that sometimes work that we do can provide space for us to live out our calling. It doesn't necessarily have to be the work itself. Poverty, however, I would say when people are actually living in poverty, this whole thing blows up. I don't disagree with that, because then people don't have choices at all, right? Then that's constricting. So I definitely want to own that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so last thing I want to show you guys, and then I'll give you another thing is, so when we talk about calling in the Gospels, we're going to talk about it as the sweet spot between these three questions. What fuels me? What can I do the best? And where is my impact the best, the greatest? What fuels me? What can I do the best? And where is my impact the greatest? And right in the center of that, we would say, is the special assignment that God's given you. It eliminates the barriers. If you think back on the barriers, if you don't have the ability for it, you don't have a sense of passion for it, and it's not in a space where you come alive, it's not your calling. So we define passion as directish. It's direction. What fuels me? What gives me energy for moving in that direction? It always comes from your story. And you're still living your story. So there's certain things that you're still discovering about your story, but your passion comes from your story. And you'll find the fuel there somewhere. Passion develops. Follow your passion is horrible advice. It's horrible advice. Passion develops through experience, through your story, through things you encounter. It's what you get fuel for. Ability, it's giftedness. God says in Ephesians chapter 4, Paul is super duper duper clear that giftedness is given and not everybody gets all five. There's five that Jesus gives to the church: the apostles, the teachers, the evangelists, the shepherds, and the prophets. Here's what he says: you don't get all five as an individual. But the church is not the church unless all five show up. So then he gets into the whole body of Christ thing. Remember all that? Hands, feet, eyes. If not, Karen, that's your next Bible study. But the point is, we don't get all five. So what are you best at? What is your giftedness? And we look at all sorts of things. Enneagram, you guys Enneagram fans? Give me your numbers. Let me hear it. Let me go. Your twos. Oh, 3-wing 2, 1-wing 2. Love it. That's a 2. 3-wing 2. Awesome. I'm a 3-wing 2. Caroline. 3-wing 2. You're such a 2. Dom 7. My husband's a 7. Lee's 7. 4-wing 3. Nice cafe night on Enneagram. Woo! Yeah, I mean, these assessments are super fun. Yay for 7s. Make life fun. You know, these assessments, whether you take DISC or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or Insights Discovery or Strength Finders, doesn't matter what they are. The problem with them all is that you don't know where to put them. They don't answer every question about your lives. It's not okay if you don't know your Enneagram number. Caroline, no. Oh, I'm teasing. She's such a wing 2. It's okay. Everybody's okay. It's okay. You don't have to know your Enneagram. Because my point, you don't even know how to spell Enneagram. It's really okay if you don't know your Enneagram. My point is that all of these assessments you're ever going to take, what the problem with them is this. You go to, I just, UVA, Career Center, love them, not ragging on them. But they'll go in there, you'll take a test, they'll give you a piece of paper, and they'll say, go do one of these things. You know, here's 10 professions you might be good at, go for it. It's just one piece of the puzzle. You just need to know where it sits. What you're good at, what your personality is, sits here. But you got to interpret that through your story, through what gets you out of bed in the morning, through what keeps you up at night. And then finally, context, which is the place. What type of place do you come alive? I was doing a life plan for a woman, faithful Christian woman, about my age, medical doctor, had been to medical school, residency, fellowships, specialty fellowships, internships, finally set up her practice, was doing great. And she came to me going, I don't think I'm supposed to be a doctor anymore. I'm like, why? She goes, I just don't think I'm called to do this. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of big. So we started going through her story and everything like that. Passion aligned with medicine, ability aligned with medicine. You know what didn't align? Place, context. She was in the wrong type of practice for her values and the way she wanted to practice medicine. Sold her practice, got into a new group, talked to her in January at the beginning of this year, could not be happier. Guys, if one of these 3 circles starts to get rubbed, you could make the mistake of questioning your whole calling. Her whole question was, I don't think this would be a doctor anymore. I'm like, holy cow, let's break that thing down. And maybe she wasn't, but in this case, it just turned out we just needed to tweak this context thing. So once we start to kind of drill down on these, we start to get down to what we call the sweet spot, and we articulate it in 2 words. Calling, when you name it, is a string that goes through your whole life, no matter what your job is, no matter what you're doing, whether you're exercising or in your friendships or in your work. Your calling can be expressed in 2 words. And then we add more words to it. We make it poetic later, but you can really get it down. And we do it like this. Your name, you know your name, exists to honor God and help others by verb noun. And when you get it, when you name it, it just rings true no matter what job you have, what friendship you're in. It's just the way that God has created you to interact with the world. So let me give you a story. My husband's first job, we were talking about first jobs, right? Babysitting, physics tutor, love it, toy store. My husband's first job was at a magic shop. He grew up in Waco, Texas. To compare, his dad was a physician there with Baylor Medicine. And he worked at a magic shop for this guy when he's like 8th grade, 9th grade, kind of manning the store while the gentleman would do inventory. And he learned magic tricks. Yeah, this is how Steve Martin, the famous actor, started off. He was a magician at Disneyland on Main Street. That's his first. Now, yeah, Mary Shaw's like, I found my calling. Watch this. So he got really good at some magic tricks, and he saw magic tricks on a skateboard. Yes. Just don't break anything. Magic tricks on the skateboard. Oh, can you put one of those cute pugs on the skateboards? Have you seen the pugs on the skateboards? Like skateboarding with their people? Okay, a human and a pug on a skateboard doing magic tricks. Done. That's your calling. So anyway, my husband sees that moment where people like are delighted by the trick, like they realize they've been had, and there's this like, we all love magic tricks, right? Because there's that moment of delight where you're like, oh my gosh, how did he pull a rabbit out of the hat or whatever? So when he's doing his calling exercise here, he's mining his story, he's looking back on his story, what fuels him, and he realizes that there's something in that moment where he can create an experience where people are surprised, where people are delighted. So my husband, I have our 2 words on our wall. My husband's 2 words are, in fact, can y'all read that? Revealing, that's my wall. Revealing delight. Those are his 2 words. There's my 2 words. Empowering momentum. His is revealing delight, causing or allowing inner joy to be seen and understood. Making known by divine means the source of great happiness. He is a pastor. And at the center of his calling is those preaching moments where he brings people into the gospel, and he creates a moment where they experience it, and he watches their faces, and that is him honoring God and helping others by revealing delight. As a husband, as a 7, Dom, you're my other 7, right? I remember. As a 7 on the Enneagram, like as a husband, there's nothing he loves more than surprising me and watching me experience delight at a surprise date or something like that. Yes, that's totally you, Dom. Like as a father, why have we been to Disneyland over 100? It's actually over 200 now. Over 200 times. Well, there's nothing about life if it's not revealing delight at Disney. I mean, like, this is who he is. And it doesn't matter as a preacher, as a husband, when you get down to really naming your two words, you will see your calling flesh out in everything you do, everything you are and everything you do. Then you'll see it in all your jobs. So I've had many different jobs in my life, all related to ministry, but they've come out in really different ways: higher education, pastoring, executive leadership of nonprofits, doesn't matter. All of those I can connect by this, empowering momentum. I'm always thinking about, how can I help you be successful? What can I do to help you move forward? How can I make that happen in your life? And now I'm a life coach. I mean, that's part of what I do. How can I help you name your calling? So let me leave you with this. Brainstorm some 2 words. The best part of this is just to start big, like get expansive and think about all the verbs in your life that might represent you. What is it that you do? You know, I like to connect. I like to bless. I like to party. I like to be socializing, blessing. They just have to end in ing. And then you do a bunch of nouns. And then you just start creating 2-word pairings and seeing what comes together. And then you just kind of try. I thought mine were optimizing potential for like 2 years. And I tried it on for a while and it didn't quite fit. And when I landed on empowering momentum, I was like, that's it. So it's not gonna happen overnight. It takes a while. But once you do, it's a super powerful little nugget that helps you name your calling. And then there's lots more we can do, friends. Karen has seen a lot more of the process. We can get a lot more clear and bigger, but this is like the little nugget. And then before I open up for Q&A, let me just tell you this. So we have a course, an online course at Unique called Find Your One Thing. And if you want to, it takes you through the sweet spot tool and gets you to your 2 words. So me and my 2 partners, Dave and Will, we go through each exercise and you will get it. So I am giving it to you for free because you're on this call. That's your coupon code for anyone in Theological Horizons that's watching this. It's if you are interested in having some fun this summer, it's not a long course, it's a few sessions, but we'll help you name your 2 words. All I ask, and it's at lifeunique.com, is that if you go to lifeunique.com and you'll see courses there, Find Your One Thing courses, so lifeunique.com courses, check out, just buy that one course, Find Your One Thing, and check out there. When you check out, put in that code and it will be free. And you can get all of our coaching, some more fun explanation of it, and really get your. All I ask is that you send in your 2 words to Karen. I would love to see them towards the end of summer. What do you think your 2 words are? We have a 2-word wall on our website where people share their 2 words, which is a lot of fun. But really, guys, the big takeaway is as you think about what you're called to do, it's going to be at the center of these 3 questions. And the more you can live out of your sweet spot, I think the more that you will experience God's joy moving through you with just freedom and grace. It's a lot of fun. So
Thank you for.
I talked. Really
oh, it's great. Especially for all these, like you said, UVA students, that's how they like it. Like, bring it. Bring it.
What questions do you have, guys?
And to be able to go from here to take, to look at this Find Your One Thing course. And I've really enjoyed looking around the website. There are a lot of terrific resources and even some courses on actually finding the JOB, because I know that's where a lot of you are too. So please check it out. And I can always put you in touch with Kelly, if you have any follow-up questions, of course. So thank you so much for bringing all your wisdom and experience to us, to the cafe night. And in the minutes we have left, Sam is going to do our show and tell. So Sam Powers is coming back for grad school, y'all. So if any of you are still undergrads, Sam's back. So what you got for us, Sam?
Well, the first thing I've got is that Karen, I would kill to live in your basement. So that is never a shame.
Alumni of the basement living, it's fantastic.
But anyway, so yeah, Kelly Kannwischer reached out to me this week and asked if I would do a show and tell. And she asked if I would like give something that's inspiring me at the moment or related to like my thoughts on God and my life. I'm gonna be honest, quarantine has me contemplative, but it certainly doesn't have me inspiring. So I texted Karen this morning kind of like, I'm not really sure what to do for show and tell. And she gave me permission to pull a kindergarten and find my plastic dinosaur. So I rummaged in the closet and found what I would consider my plastic dinosaur of the day. And it's this. I'm not sure if you can really see it, but it's a most like fun kind of fabric. It's an elephant. It's also a backpack. And it's got this little zipper in it right here. So you can like put things in it. And it's got a pocket on the front. And I forgot that I had some in my closet. I've got another one right here. But for those of you who don't know, I was living in Rwanda this past year and was supposed to continue living there. That's where my research was. And because of COVID, I had about 48 hours to evacuate. And that's how I ended up back in the States. And so there was this shop where, kind of by where I was living, where these women would make different things out of these fun fabrics. And the first time I walked in, I saw these backpacks. And I don't really have any small children in my life. I don't really know any, but I promised myself that I would find some way to get some before I left. And so, like the day I was leaving, it dawned on me that I did not have any backpacks. And so I ran like 2 hours before my flight to go get some backpacks, threw them in my sack, and ended up spending far too much time talking to the women there at this cooperative, which is one of the best decisions I could have made during my time there. Because it turns out that this cooperative was a result of women coming together through their faith and forgiving, finding it in themselves somehow to forgive and work alongside some of the wives of men who had killed their husbands during the genocide. And so to me, these backpacks, finding them in my closet, represent some sort of hope. Because as I grabbed them, I told myself that although I don't have any small children in my life, now, once I get out of quarantine, I will find the first small child I see and I will give them said backpack. And so it represents two forms of hope for me. One, that there's a powerful force in God out there that can drive reconciliation that I just like can't understand. And even as I have a few hours to leave a country whose airport is going to close behind me, like my world seems to be ending. There's still redemption and there's still ways to get past barriers that I have never experienced the depths of. And then secondarily, as they sit in my closet, they represent that there's going to be freedom of movement soon, and there's going to be an opportunity for me to share this little guy with the first small child I run into. So that's the plastic dinosaur in my closet.
Ah, beautiful. Well, if you saw the chat box, you have plenty of volunteers. If you can't find any little children, we're happy to model the backpacks at least until you reclaim them for some toddler, for sure. Thank you, Sam, for bringing our show and tell tonight. And we're just so glad to have you back among us, and look forward, of course, to being all together again, or at least together from a distance. And so as we go, I want to tell you that next week, I'm hoping that Dom will do show and tell for us, Dominique DeBose, who is, where she's chatting. Yep, see, she's there in the box. But she's coming because our amazing friend Lakeisha Lockhart is going to join us, and we're going to play for the whole hour. So if you were here last spring for Vintage, Lakeisha Lockhart she's a practical theologian. She teaches at a seminary in Richmond. She's actually going to teach at Chicago Seminary. She's a practical theologian, and her whole area is play with a purpose. And so we're going to play games the whole time. And I said this was a challenge, but she's already playing games on Zoom. She'd already thought of this. So she's going to come and play with us and help us think even theologically as we play. So I'm really excited about that, and have some other ideas for more cafe nights. And so thank you for coming out tonight, for spending this lovely hour together, and especially Kelly for unleashing your 2 words again. What are your 2 words again?
Empowering momentum.
You empowered some momentum tonight, for sure. So take the course, explore the website, dream big, look for your sweet spot, find your one thing. And God, we know, is blessing you and giving you direction where you least expect it. So our blessing tonight, may the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. Love y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.